So guys, let's work with some materials from the book New Cutting Edge Upper Intermediate Level, and let's start with some speaking. Talk about a place that was important in your childhood. Something you remember about the first house, flat you ever lived in. The name of someone from your past who you don't see anymore. The name of someone you have met recently. Something important that has happened in your family recently. Your least favorite day of the week or time of day. A film legend. Meryl Streep is seen by many as the greatest actor of generation. The range of feelings and emotions that she can portray is astounding, and she has won more acting awards than any actor in history. Now in her 60s, she is still throwing herself into every role and giving performances that attract praise and admiration from audiences everywhere. How much does happiness cost? Do you want to earn more money? Do you think it will make you happier? If your answers are yes and yes, then you are in for a surprise. Studies consistently show that how much we earn is actually less important to our happiness than how much other people earn. What we want most of all is to earn more than our friends and colleagues. This might explain why countries like China, South Korea, and Chile have seen the average income more than double over the last 20 years, but have seen no increase in happiness. In the case of South Korea, life satisfaction has actually fallen. However, this doesn't mean that we don't care about our income. According to Nobel Prize winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman, money does not buy you happiness, but a lack of money certainly buys you misery. Happiness and the city. Most people think that city folk are more stressed and less happy than country folk. Well, now it's officially true. Cities are not only bad for your health with their pollution and overcrowding, they are also bad for your happiness. Using a special smartphone app, economist George McCarran collected data on where, when, and why people were happy. The results were clear. Cities are the unhappiest places to live in. If you think of happiness as being on a scale from 1 to 100, cities reduce your well being by between 1 and 5 points. And which places make people happiest? Mountains and forests. Give a little. Philosophers may tell us that money can buy happiness, but is this reality or a myth? Psychologist Elizabeth Dunn from the University of British Columbia in Canada decided to find out. She gave one group of students $20 each to spend on themselves. She gave another group the same amount of money and asked them to spend it on other people. The next morning, the students were asked how happy they felt. Those who had spent the money on other people were overwhelmingly happier, proving that pro-social spending, as Dunn calls it, makes us happy. Newspapers tend to report on random acts of aggression or violence, but in reality, random acts of kindness make a bigger difference to society. Dunn's experiment shows that we can improve our own contentment and other people's by giving more than we take. The problem is very few people believe it. What makes you happy? What makes you depressed? What makes you giggle? What annoys you or makes you angry? What makes you feel stressed? What helps you to relax? What scares you? What gives you the creeps? Describing your feelings really worries, scares me. I find very depressing. Makes me giggle, makes me laugh. Makes me happy, makes me really stressed. One thing that drives me mad is, my biggest fear is. Can you explain what it scares you? Sorry, can you explain why it scares you? What exactly makes you angry? Have you always felt like this? Have you ever had any bad experiences with? Several people find very annoying. A common thing that people worry about is one or two people are frightened of. One person finds creepy. The strangest thing I heard was Omar, law student, slightly disabled in left arm, ex-member of Egyptian Paralympic football team, highly intelligent, humorous, excellent communicator, can be hot-tempered and argumentative. Bahar, agricultural expert who has worked a lot in developing countries, widow and mother of two daughters aged 17 and 18, calm and resilient but rather humorless, rather impatient with other people, not a team player. Giorgio, doctor, general practitioner, good leadership, charming and good fun, had heart attack 4 years ago, but health now good. We saw history in the making. We look back at some of the most famous celebrations and protests of the last century and how it felt to be there. The Wall Street crash and the Jarrow March. On Thursday, 24th October 1921, at the New York Stock Exchange on Wall Street, the unthinkable happened. In one day, 30 million shares changed hands as prices collapsed, and the dream of wealth was transformed into the nightmare of poverty. The Wall Street crash led to a period of unemployment, homelessness, and hunger all over the world. In the next few years, millions of ordinary people's lives were destroyed. Over 5,000 kilometers away, in the shipbuilding town of Jarrow in the northeast of England, unemployment among skilled working men reached 65% as a result of the Great Depression that followed the Wall Street crash. In October 1936, 207 men from Jarrow set out on foot to march the 480 kilometers to London as a protest against starvation. The Jarrow marches were cheered and given food in every town that passed through, but when they reached Parliament, nothing was done for them. The men were given £1 each for their train fare home. The Summer of Love. During the 1960s, rebellion against the establishment grew in many parts of the world, from the United States to Czechoslovakia. Young people began to adopt an alternative lifestyle characterized by long hair and colorful clothes, and to protest against the action of their governments, such as the Vietnam War. In 1967, thousands of young people gathered in the Haight-Ashbury neighborhood of San Francisco to promote peace, happiness, and love in what became known as the Summer of Love. Music festivals, poetry readings, speeches, and theater events celebrated flower power. However, by October 1967, events had taken an unpleasant turn as crime and drug abuse increasingly took over. The organizers held a funeral and burned a coffin labeled Summer of Love. (1989) The fall of the Berlin Wall. In autumn 1981, following reforms in the former Soviet Union, opposition to communist rule in the countries of Eastern Europe began to grow and their governments began to open their borders. Under overwhelming pressure, on 9th November, the East German government announced that the Berlin Wall, which divided the city, would be opened and that East Berliners would be free to visit the West. Within hours, thousands of people poured through the gates in the wall, where they were greeted with flowers and champagne by West Berliners. People from both sides began to knock down the wall with hammers, and by 1990, East and West Germany were reunified. 2008 Obama's election night. On 5th November 2008, 47-year-old Senator Barack Obama shattered 200 years of US history and swept to victory to become the first black president of the United States. A crowd of 250,000 gathered in Grant Park, Chicago to celebrate. Over 1 million people crammed the streets of the city and many millions more celebrated around the US and across the world. Obama, who had started his presidential campaign as an outsider, had won 1 million of white votes as well as black ones with his famous slogan, "Yes, we can." His election was seen by many as the culmination of a campaign for black rights that had begun with Martin Luther King in the early 1960s. Do it right. Collect and present tips. How to prepare for a job interview. How to choose the right career. How to dress for success in the workplace. How to learn a foreign language. How to be successful in exams. How to impress your colleagues and boss. How to manage your time. How to have a happy romantic relationship. How to be a good friend. How to improve your social life. How to get fit and stay fit. How to eat healthily and cheaply. Our top tips. Always be honest. A dishonest person has no chance of making true friends because it is hard to rely on a person who doesn't behave in a consistent or trustworthy way. Most experts agree that only hard work, planning, and starting early will maximize success. The first and most basic point is to make a clear, solid revision plan. Research shows that those who break tasks down into small, manageable parts achieve the best results. One classic mistake is to try and progress too quickly. This often results in injuries and puts you back at square one, so try to be realistic. Take every opportunity to let your partner know what it is that you like most about them, what you admire, what makes you proud, and what their strengths are in your eyes. Never be afraid to ask for help. If you don't know what you're doing in a particular situation, then don't pretend that you do. It's far better to admit your ignorance and ask for help from someone who knows what they're doing. This has two benefits. Firstly, you appear willing to learn. Secondly, you make the other person feel important, which never does any harm. Always remember that most organizations have a dress code about things like jewelry, nails, etc. Until you know differently, it's best to assume that your prospective employer or client is fairly conservative about these things. Aim to find out as much as you can in advance about what is required and then think about how you can best match your skills to the job. Brain facts. It is said that there are about 100 billion cells in the human brain. They say that there are about 100 billion cells in the human brain. Brain cells can only be seen with a microscope. It is still not known exactly how many aspects of the human brain work. It is often thought that the right side of the brain is the artistic side. In fact, both sides of the brain are used when we listen to music. It has been calculated that messages in the brain travel at over 250 kilometers per hour. In ancient times, it was believed that the purpose of the brain was to cool the blood. Research is being done into how the brain is formed. Okay, so those are some useful materials I found in the textbook New Cutting Edge for upper intermediate level. Thank you for watching.